This is the CW Spiral, a podcast run by three survivors of the CW's calling in 2022. We're your hosts, Sabrina Reed,
Michael Patterson,
and Reed Gaudens,
bringing you history about the network and the WB, the latest news and in-depth Sporterville discussions of the best and messiest shows to ever grace the small screen. Welcome, y'all, to our season finale palooza. As you would have heard last pod episode, we are combining the ride episodes. So if you are watching in time with the CW, you might want to skip that section because we're going to be blending episode 9, episode 10 together. Before we launch into the reviews for Ride and Wildcards, we're going to open with news about Superman and Lois. We have got a casting announcement. Jimmy Olsen will be in the final season of the show. He's going to be played by Douglas Smith. Michael, you know that I'm not quite happy about the character description, but let me just share it with everyone. He is going to be an extroverted 20-something who's known as the life of the party, and he can't seem to get Clark out of his awkward shell, which is why he really wants to be friends with him. And this seems like, they didn't say this in the description, but it seems like we're definitely flashbacking to Clark's early days at the Daily Planet. I love Jimmy Olsen. Extroverted Jimmy Olsen isn't my jam.
Reading that description, you're like, that doesn't sound anything like Jimmy Olsen. I'm like, why do we keep doing this to Jimmy Olsen? I know, obviously, when Ed McCall played Jimmy in Supergirl, he was hunky, he was confident, he was suave, all of the things that Jimmy Olsen isn't. So there was always that conversation of that. This is only Jimmy Olsen by name. It feels like we're kind of doing the same thing here again, in that we just have a character named Jimmy Olsen in the Daily Planet who connects with these iconic characters, but he's not really anything like the nerdy, shy photographer that Jimmy Olsen is. I think that's one of the reasons why Jimmy and Clark work so well together, is that they're very alike, whereas this seems to be going for a different route of that, like you said, Jimmy's taking Clark under his wing almost. So yeah, I assume you're right. I do think we're doing a flashback episode. Bitsy and Tyler have been sharing a lot of photographs lately of Clark and Lois at the Daily Planet, so I assume we're getting one more flashback episode, which honestly I'm thrilled about because they're some of the best episodes of the show's whole run. I look forward to them every season. But Superman and Lois is also known for taking slightly different approaches to the source material, as comic accurate as it can be. Lex Luthor is a lot more vicious and less suave than the comic book version of the character, and it seems like we're doing we're doing a slightly similar approach here with Jimmy Olsen, in that I assume some of the features that we have come to know from the character, like the photographer element, will be there, but we're going down a slightly different route. I trust Superman and Lois' storytelling. It's one of the best written shows on TV, and it always approaches things in a very tasteful element, in that the changes you can buy into. It's going to be different, but I'm very excited to see Jimmy Olsen on Superman and Lois, because of the quartet of iconic Superman characters that we all know and we all love to see in our Superman content: Clark, Lois, Lex, and Jimmy. He was the last one to appear, so it feels fitting that before the show buys out, we finally get to see what Superman and Lois as Jimmy Olsen looks like.
Now, I know you're all going to be shocked, but I had no idea who this man was. I thought Jimmy Olsen was an actor, and I was like, oh, who's he? Was Jimmy Olsen in Smallville?
Yes, in the later seasons.
Was he played by anybody I would know?
Aaron Ashmore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that Jimmy was perfectly comic accurate. They did pull a twist with him later on that revealed that it wasn't exactly the Jimmy that we knew, but Aaron Ashmore was perfectly cast. Nerdy with the photographer, with the photograph, with the camera. Oh, I'm losing my words today.
If memory serves, Aaron Ashmore's he's still handsome though, like CW handsome, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
know who this man is. I'm gonna have to Google.
Because he has a twin, right? Or am I mixing?
He does. His twin, Sabrina. You've seen the X-Men movies. His twin is in the X-Men Iceman.
Yes, and
they are legit, real twins.
Very much so.
People, I would get that who I can't tell them apart, and I'm usually really good at telling twins apart.
Yep. As soon as I put on X-Men, I was like, Jimmy. No, it's not Jimmy. It's not Jimmy. But yeah, I thought Aaron Ashmore did a wonderful job as Jimmy, and even though we later found out in Smallville he wasn't actually playing the character of Jimmy Olsen, on the surface he was probably the most comic accurate Jimmy Olsen we've had. So I would like to see some elements of that in Superman and Lois. We might not, but yeah, I'm just excited to see the character on screen again, because it's been a while since the Supergirl version.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be fun. Like, I'm here for photographer Jimmy and whatever antics he might be trying to get Clark into while they're in Metropolis. I just, when will we get the lovable, shy, awkward Jimmy who loves his camera and is just going around taking the pictures he needs to take? It's fine to have that. I know everyone wants to be like cool, you know. He's like the opposite of Clark. I'm like, yeah, yeah, but he doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
Like, let introverts be best friends, please,
hmm
on screen.
Yeah, I think that would be lovely. And that's the thing. We saw a bit of that in the Lois and Clark series as well. Jimmy played a big part of the Daily Planet dynamic, so I assume he'll be playing a big part here, even though he is more confident. I know part of the lore is that Jimmy Olsen, I think, catches the first photo of Superman, so I hope maybe we'll get to see that here. But it's also supposed to be I'm Jimmy Olsen. I didn't mean to take that photo, but I've just made
No
my
one
own
took a
career by
photo
taking it.
of him.
I think that was the lore of it. He was the first person to ever capture a photograph of
Okay, so
Superman.
like Superman's been like out in the open a lot in Superman and Lois, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
But
No one's got their iPhone out.
if we're doing a flashback episode, I guess maybe it'll go right back to the beginning. But it does take the idea of
Oh, true, true, true. See, I keep forgetting you're saying it's a flashback because I was gonna ask like why is he 20 and friends with Clark, but you said flashback.
they've never met. I think if I remember correct, I don't think they've mentioned Jimmy on the show. Maybe they have once or twice. But I don't know if he's still in contact with them. But I assume we'll be flashing back. I think the Superman and Lois flashbacks usually take place about 20 years beforehand. Um, so obviously Lois and Clark have aged very, very well in those 20 years. But so I maybe we'll get to see Jimmy and the dynamic of those early days at the Daily Planet. Um, it feels like it would complete that circle. Another character I never mentioned was Perry White, who obviously plays a big role in the Superman lore. Not so much in the show. We only seen him once when he was interviewing Clark. But Jimmy feels like the last little box we haven't ticked yet. So it'll be exciting. I know there was dialogue about the fact that Superman and Lois has done another Arrowverse recast and that they won't be played a character won't be played by the same character actor who played them on Supergirl. But I mean we've done that with Morgan Edge, we've done that with Lex, we did that with General Lane. So I
I
mean I
love
really don't
Morgan
mind at this
Edge.
point. Yeah, I
Bring
know
him
you do.
back.
You're
Bring
fair.
him back.
We do need to see him one more time. But I mean that conversation's been had now. We know that the recast. So yes, it's unfortunate that we're not going for the same casting actor, Mecca, who played him on Supergirl. But we've had that conversation across the 3 seasons when they've done it before, so it's not really that surprising that they've done it one more time.
No, it's not the first time. I mean, like,
Mm-mm.
I guess sorry to anybody who was hoping, but there's just been nothing about this show that has said that they wanted at all to bring people in from the Arrowverse outside of, the leads. I know there was talk about like Candace and not Bart, my God, Grant. Um, Grant coming back before everything got canceled. So I get it, but in some ways it's just never expected. It was unexpected for Jimmy to be cast at all. So it's going to be nice to see him. Period. Even though he's not played by Makad. Not that Makad's performance was fine. That just wasn't Jimmy Olsen.
hmm
Would have been totally fine if he'd been just another character. There was nothing about besides the photography. I mean, that man seemed like he had like a 401k, very steady, beautiful apartment. Like it was just like that's not why is Jimmy the guy at work? Jimmy's never been the guy. And that's what
hmm
he was giving in Supergirl. But anyway, that's a tangent for another time. I'm very happy that Jimmy Olsen will be in the final season of Superman and Lois. Especially because we weren't expecting anybody because it's a 10 episode run. So it's like really nice that they were like, actually, surprise, we have an iconic character coming.
Yeah, we'll take what we can get at this point. It completes the circle of the Superman at Lois story. So I'm just thrilled we're going to get another iconic DC character in the show. It was cool to see Lucy Lane. It was cool to see Sam Lane. It's been cool to see all these awesome characters. Doomsday will no doubt make a comeback in the final season. Lex will be in it. So yeah, I'm glad we're going out with some DC characters. As long as they don't take away from the characters we won't be seeing enough of already, I'm thrilled with it. Jimmy will fit and fine in a flashback episode.
Hmm. And we will be waiting until fall
hmm
to see the last season. But moving into Ride, before we hop into our discussion of both episodes, I did want to ask you both, now that you've completed your ride journey, where are we? Did we leave the horse back at the barn midway through the trip and you just glad you finished walking through it? Or did it surprise you by the end and you kind of was like, okay, we see you?
I'm hanging up my cowboy hat, putting the saddle back in the barn, horses in the stable. I'm leaving Colorado or wherever they are and wishing them all well on their journey. I started out hopeful, if not excited, and then things took a turn. And I thought perhaps maybe we were, turning things around a little bit, but I think overall, Bride and I have peacefully separated,
Mm.
consciously uncoupled, if you will.
To quote the great scholar, The Undertaker, this has been my last ride. So, as like Reed said, it's time to move on. But I mean, like I say this, I'm moving on because I have to. If the show was coming back for a second season, I do think I probably would have been there. I am attached enough to these characters to want to know where their story goes next. But I've also accepted the fact we accepted this before we started the show that we probably won't find out, and that's okay too. Um, the finale was a better the double. Let's just call it a double finale because we watched the two episodes together.
It's a
That was
double finale to us.
yeah, exactly. Um, it was better than the episode we watched previously. We heightened the momentum a little bit. I'm not sure the dial was turned all the way up, but considering we watched two episodes together, it was a smoother watch for me than last week's single episode.
Cool. Okay, then y'all are where I thought you would be. I was watching this and I was like, oh, I wish there was a season two. Reed and Michael, probably not. But like it's just something about where they land at the end after we got through everything that feels like the world opens up a bit more and there's a bit more understanding of where we might be going with the characters, which again, we've talked about this for other shows before. You cannot do that in a 10 episode season. You
Mhm.
cannot, have us, on the trail for a really long time and then come by with the car. That's just not how it works. But
Mhm.
because we do get to that journey, people land, I think, where they need, for the most part, land where they need to land. Cash, not so much. But everybody else, yes, their stories feel a bit more complete, but also like there's more that we can do with them. Two, I guess to just summarize episode 9, it's all about the belt buckle. The Clash gets into a fight about it. Tucker lands in jail, nearly misses the thing in Cheyenne. We learn about Valeria and her family, which was that enough payoff for y'all?
If I'm being completely honest, and I
Mhm.
feel like I have been, I didn't care at this point.
Got it.
I was like, y'all are shoving this down my throat. I lost interest like 4 episodes ago. Like I enjoyed that it was dramatic, it felt big, it was juicy, but I was kind of like I don't know. I feel like I don't fully understand what happened because apart from being like this grand dramatic explanation, it felt super thin.
Mm,
And because I was losing interest, I was like, it wasn't what I was like in the episode for. So like I like half understand what happened with Valeria, but it doesn't seem like it's even that big of an explanation,
hmm
right? In the flashbacks, like she just left.
Yeah, that was my issue
Was it
with
her
the episode.
parents? It was just her real parents, right? Her foster parents? What
no, no,
happened?
those are her parents.
Okay, it was parents.
So what happened that they explain further is that when her mom got sick when she was 14, it's unclear whether or not she died when Valeria was 14 or if she died a little bit later. But after her mother's death, her and her father, who didn't really have a great relationship in the first place because her mom was the one holding the family together, weren't really seeing eye to eye, especially because he got married to somebody else 6 months after her mom passed.
Okay, so that was the stepmom that she overheard.
Who clearly didn't want a stepchild whatsoever. She wanted her. She was like, "You tried with the insubordination and skipping school. She has to go to reform school," which sounded like a bad thing. So Valia ran away from home. She ran into Austin on the road after being picked up by a trucker as a girl. There's so much that could have happened to you. So glad you're safe. But the he brings her to the ranch and then she just gets folded into the family when she's 16 years old. the thing that she had been hiding all season was that Austin came to her when he was in dire straits. And so she went to go steal, well, not steal, she went to go get the necklace her mother left for her, which she left at her dad's house. And her dad caught her. But he didn't say anything to her, so she just took the necklace and she pawned it off to Tucker and gave Austin the money. And no one knew that. And because she didn't want to tarnish his memory, she didn't say anything about what she did.
Speaking of not wanting to say anything about what she did, I feel like that was my issue with the opening parts of the episode, in that this secret has dominated the show so much that, like Reed said, we kind of lost interest. Last week's cliffhanger was all about the secret's going to come out, and she just basically told us everything we as viewers were already aware of, because she was still holding back the big crux of it, which was the Austin secret, the Tucker involvement, the reason why she felt like she had to go on the run in the first place. So that set up the whole no more secrets trope. And of course, we knew there were more secrets. So it just felt like, why are we going over this again? It just felt like it was going around in circles. Um, and I'm glad with the way it worked out, in that she didn't take the brunt of it again. But on this show, she very well could have taken the brunt of it, because she has literally been lying to these people since she came back. And when she was given an opportunity to be more honest than ever, she still only told them half the truth. And I know personally she didn't want to tarnish Austin's memory, but it took us until the end of the episode before that finally came out. So it did kind of feel like we were just going around in circles with it again.
And to like kind of jump off of that, one of my I think biggest issues I think with the series, and something I noticed a lot in I think these two episodes, it felt like a lot of the action happened off screen. They're reacting to things that happened in the past. They're just talking about things that happened in the past. There is action in the present, obviously, but like the past dominates the narrative. And personally, to my taste, you guys, anybody could disagree with me. That's fine. Like, I'm not saying this is the be all end all of the show, but for like my taste, I just bore easily when we're talking about things that I haven't seen. It's like if I just decided to go to somebody else's high school reunion and they're like talking about the past and I don't know who they are and I've never heard the stories and I'm like, okay. Like a lot of the episode, I was kind of like, why do I care? Like, do something now. Do you know what I
Mhm.
Hmm.
mean? I don't know if that's too unfair to put on it, but as a viewer, that was just what was rattling around in my brain.
No, I'm
Mm.
with you on that. I feel like it's fine when they do it at the start, because this show, I like the fact that we did the flashback right at the start and then jumped a year into the future, because there was so much fallout to deal with. But we've been doing it for 9 episodes now, and that we're constantly having conversations that happened in the past, or about situations that happened in the past. And occasionally we do flashbacks, but it's trying to have its cake and eating it. It's having flashbacks to show us some of what happened in the past, but then being trying to be mysterious about the other half of it. So that just results in like hour-long conversations. It just doesn't feel like it's driving the plot did not drive as forward as it needed to, I think, to reach this point. And considering they only had 10 episodes, it probably should have moved a little bit quicker, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's a specter over the plot, which for some shows does work. This is giving
Hmm.
like the past is prologue, but we
Hmm.
also need to have an investment in the past and outside of whatever was causing an issue with Austin, which you don't know until later, which just adds a new element to the story. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. He has a son they didn't know about. So I'm like, oh, that's cool as far as like a story element. Very soapy, like random child just shows
I
up.
did. Okay, I
Mm,
have to ask though, did we know that Polly had a child before that final scene?
no.
Mm-mm.
See, that's
Mm-mm.
what drove me nuts. Because as soon as I saw the kid, I was like, one, whose kid is that? Two, oh, it's gonna be Austin's. And then because the kid is like in behind in the scene and he's blurry, and I'm like, he's obviously gonna be a key part. Like I knew what she was gonna say before she got to it, and it kind of drove me nuts as like a writer and like a television connoisseur. But I do kind of really enjoy a connoisseur. Why did I say that? I don't view myself that way. I'm thumbs upping. Sorry, guys.
It's all right.
The chaos that just happened in the past 10 seconds, I apologize. But like it was juicy because I was like, ooh, he has a son. But I don't know. Like I also was like aggravated on behalf of Isabel because I'm like, who else? She would be a great grandma. And she missed out on so much of that. Like I was mad on her behalf, but it is a good soapy moment. You're right. It was good. But I also was kind of frustrated because I was like, we just decided that one, she's a kid, and two, that it's Austin's, and three, now it's like a huge thing for this whole family.
Yeah, so he didn't know until 4 months ago. And the part that I get a little bit lost in the sauce is I'm not sure if Austin only began throwing races, not races, his competitions because something was going on with the
Hmm.
child, which they never tell you. I'm assuming he was sick because that sounds like a lot of money that he was trying to make up for. So it couldn't have possibly just been child support because he could have
Mm.
afforded that. So the baby must have been really, really sick, or she personally, Polly had an issue that affected the child. I don't know. But it caused all this ruckus. And I'm like, let's see, if we had gotten that in the halfway point, blows the show open because then everybody has to react to it. And then a lot of situations get higher stakes. And I just feel like had Polly and Wyatt showed up earlier and been revealed earlier, perhaps the show would have been more rounded as a season. Instead of it's interesting because it's not a slice of life show, but it often gives slice of life. Like we're meandering through plots. We're bull riders, we're horse riders, we're taking care of the farm, but also Austin has a secret we know nothing about. Valeria has a secret we have nothing about, and that's like the action that's supposed to be the hook, but it doesn't hook everybody. As clearly it did not
No,
hook you.
no. Because
Hmm.
even like you were mentioning like Austin throwing racism, like so much of the plot of the series rests on a character who is dead.
Hmm.
Like, how am I supposed to emotionally invest in that? I don't know. I'm sorry to anybody on the show. I don't mean to be this nitpicky. I think it's just because I cared so much and I wanted it to be when you watch a show and you like see the potential. I also feel like there are some budgetary restrictions on the show because in the finale when we he did the race or not the yeah, I did the same thing, race, right. He was riding. That was the most fun I'd had in many episodes because it was a big scene with a lot of extras in a cool location and the animals were there and a lot was happening. That was so much fun, but obviously they could not do that every episode,
Hmm.
Hmm.
which understandable, makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. To jump off one of the things you said about being stuck in the past, that would work if it was a more contained plot and there was a mystery to the whatever happened this character done in the past and that everybody knew him or whatever. But we have a huge family here, so much so that there are characters that constantly are overlooked by the plot, and all they are doing is focusing on the past and how they all play into this mystery. And it's not even done in an interesting murder mystery. It's like you played that role, you played that role, you played that role. It's like Reed said, it's all just about Austin, and he's not in the show enough for us to care about him. The flashbacks were fleeting, far and few between. Sometimes you'd have multiple 5 minute ones, and sometimes you'd have a 15-second one, and that'd be it.
Mhm.
Um, it just felt like so much so we were focused so much on the past that when we did this random wedding episode last week, it felt like a waste of time. What's going on in the
I
present?
forgot about that.
There's not enough interesting things going on in the present. I mean, in theory, that should justify looking towards the past, but it's just I think we had the concoction for a great show, and the way it turned out really hindered it from living up to its potential, if that makes sense. Because we saw a super amount of flashes of it throughout those early couple of episodes, but it just felt like the longer it went on, and which I it's not a sentence I should have to say about a 10 episode show, but it just feels like the longer it went on, the quicker it ran out of momentum. And like I said, we started dialing it back up, but it felt like it had just scratched the surface of that momentum, and suddenly it was over. And I feel like we could have used these 10 episodes better to get somewhere, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It
One more
does.
frustrating thing before we hop to, I want to talk about tough. But before that, a few episodes ago, Missy was like distraught over finding out that Austin had cheated on the races, not even on her. But Polly was like, she had another secret about her husband locked and loaded. That's what frustrates me too, is that like if Polly reacted, I'm calling Missy Polly because of
Yeah,
Riverdale.
Riverdale.
If Missy reacted like that to finding out that her husband wasn't an honest writer or whatever he was up to, finding out that her husband had a son, even if Austin didn't know about it until whenever, I'm like that's more interesting to me as like a character study for Missy.
Hmm.
Because now it would mean that season two would be all about her dealing with that. I don't know. It's just frustrating when you see like a character is like brought in to stir the pot with a secret. Lo and behold, she had an even bigger secret. I
Hmm.
don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it makes sense because if they had gotten a season two, especially with Missy deciding to choose herself, the likelihood of her coming back home is even dimmer once she finds
Mhm.
out. Which knowing this show, she probably wouldn't have found out in the premiere. Probably would have
Yeah.
dragged for 3 episodes, maybe four, before someone tells her. But maybe not, because the thing is that with hindsight, is 2020 for a reason. So
Yeah.
perhaps the things that were not working with the show, or this is a case of you ever watch a season of television, the first season of television, where you could tell this wasn't the story they wanted to tell. It's the setup for the story they want to tell,
Hmm.
and they're
Yep.
hoping for a season two so that then they can get to where they actually want to go, which is a gamble for anyone who's writing television. That, and especially in this day and age, setting up a story in a first season instead of telling the story you want to tell in the first season
You're right. It's so
often gets you
frustrating when
canceled.
you read like a Q and a with whoever and they're like, we were did this to set up this. And it's like, why didn't you just do that?
Yeah. Because the season two always sounds more interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it typically does. No, I don't think they had done, when a lot of shows were getting canceled, they used to do the sit down with the showrunner to tell you what they would have done had they gotten the season. This show, I don't believe got that, so I have no idea what they were going to do in season two. But we do know some things that would have happened, like to move to talk about Tough. Tough chose himself after someone finally stood up for him, which, what's her name?
J
Janine. Yeah.
Janine.
Hmm.
Underrated queen, I guess. I don't know. I was so confused by his scene with Julian when he was like explaining what he was gonna do. Because to my ear, it sounded like I don't know. I was so confused by the dialogue in that scene because it
Yeah.
sounded like he was gonna be with Julian, but then Julian was sad, and I was like, I missed something.
Yeah.
My
No,
my something I got lost. I was like, what happened? Because it doesn't sound like something's connecting. I don't know.
I
I got desperately lost.
I thought that was a complete jarring of a scene as well because when he first walked in, he was like almost like I've got some bad news for you, and Julian got sad, and then Tough said something hopeful, so I was like, oh, he's reeling him in with a joke, and then he was like, but that's why we can't be together, and I was like, what? I didn't catch that, and then it turned out that going off with Julian would only be another example of him not choosing himself, and I'm like,
But he's
but it's a holiday.
but isn't he
Um,
just like he's choosing to stay on the ranch, right? Is what he's
No, he's
isn't he?
choosing to do Battle of the Bands. He's going to
Oh,
pursue his music. So the reason why the scene is confusing is because it starts with him saying, "At least I won't have to worry about how much it costs to fill this up." And I don't remember which piece of farm. Um, what did you even call those? Not devices, tools, whatever. The things. He's filling one of those up, and so Julian kind of is like, "Oh, that means he's going." But then Tough reveals that he's not going. He actually wants to pursue. I don't know if he actually told Julian he's going to pursue Battle of the Bands. I can't remember. But in order to do that, he can't go to Arizona with him because while it would be a vacation, he needs to actually practice with the band and figure out what they're going to do, and most likely figure out what songs he wants to sing for Battle of the Bands. And so he's prioritizing himself and his music in a way that he had never done before. Even though he cares about Julian, he doesn't want to put his life on hold to just go hang out in Arizona and not do anything.
okay, tough. Whatever.
uh,
But Janine was still spitting facts when she was really who was she barking at when she was like, no one cares about Tough. Tough doesn't get to do anything for himself.
Valeria.
And I was like,
Valeria.
say it. No one heard you, but I don't even think Tough heard her. Even though he did choose himself or whatever. But I was like, the only real one on this whole ranch.
I know. I literally have written down not Janine dropping truth bombs, a queen in disguise, perhaps. Um, it's so true because you would never have thought that this character that's been portrayed in a very vacuous sense actually had like the best vision of all of them. She saw the stuff that we've been screaming about since the beginning. Um, yeah, I'm going to say it again. We said about Tufts' whole arc. I would care more if they cared more. if they invested more time in it. Again, it felt like it all happened off screen. I don't understand why a scene that all about I'm not going on holiday with you had to turn into let's break up. It just I can see the writing, but that's all it is, writing. There's been nothing was put into thought there. Nothing was put into like there was no depth to it. And I feel like we would have understood the decision more, we would have cared more if it hadn't had that. All it had was that unusual dialogue scene to sell it, and I don't think it sold it well enough. I think yes, Tough chose himself, whoop-de-doo, but like the show's still not choosing him. He still doesn't have much attention. It never felt like it carried the gravity it needed to, if that makes sense.
Hmm. I know I said this last time, but it is fascinating to me. Not because I don't see the holes in the show, but because there's something about what's not even like necessarily a comfort show. I just enjoy seeing the country, which you don't see a lot of in on television. I mean, well, Westerns are getting more popular, but it's not exactly like take your pick, right? So I like that this one is as soft isn't the right word, especially not in these last two episodes, because Cass was ready to fight about like a lot of things. But I don't know, they're soothing. It's
Hmm.
soothing, it's calming. I will mention something off pod about to y'all about one of the moments. It has to do with a truck. That just makes me feel about my family. But anyway, um the I think I kind of just like that it is sort of meandering. I don't know.
I
I
love
like.
that. I mean, we all have those kinds of shows that like no one else gets, but we love.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Fortunately, I just could not join you on this one.
Yeah, no, and I
Fully.
get
I was
why.
in it in the beginning, but like something shifted. I don't know.
The something is that it didn't, you were waiting for something to go somewhere and it did not.
Yeah. Can I
I mean, it
also
did, but not where you
I
wanted it to go.
these last two episodes too, I feel like that there wasn't a real intimacy between Tough and Julian.
Mm.
Hmm.
We've gotten like a kiss in the past, but like if you watch this on mute, I don't think you would pick up on the fact that they were actually romantically involved. I don't
Yeah,
know. I was like,
yeah,
what? The past few episodes, their scenes together were like, hey, bro. And I'm like, what? I mean, that's the vibe I got. And that's
yeah,
not what they were
Mhm.
saying,
yeah.
but I
No, I
was like,
totally got
what?
it.
I get what network we're on. I applaud it, but can we a hug maybe? Not when he patted Julian on the shoulder or whatever he did at the rodeo, I was like, Tough is different. That's not that doesn't give he's more emotional to me, I feel like Tough. So I'm
Mhm.
like, he would definitely hug that guy.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
like
don't know.
he didn't expect to see him. He was like, "Oh, you made it," and they turned around, kind of
Hey,
like a
bud.
nod.
That's not what he said,
He
but
already
that's
knew
what
he
like
wasn't going to be around. I think that's what though that could have been conveyed better via dialogue.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
he knew he was gonna, because by then she'd already mentioned about all the bands.
Hmm. That's the thing. You know when you write something into a corner that you can see where it's coming from. I feel like, well, this is the opposite. It was so underwritten that you knew where it was going because if the show didn't invest enough time or effort in that relationship to care about it, why should we? And so by the end of the season, it was like, well, what can we cut from the show? And that was the obvious choice.
Hmm. Oh, okay. Going in the vein of romances, though. On my second watch of Cash and Missy in this finale, I remember going up for the kiss and watching it again. And it might have been because I was watching it before we had to do the pod, so I was a little distracted. But I was like, this didn't hit the way that I remember it hitting for me, which
yeah,
is
it's
unfortunate,
confusing.
but true.
Because I think it was episode 9 when Gus said something about wanting to be with Missy, and I was like, how could you not root for that? Especially when Cash is sitting in jail. I'm like, how? Like, she's got a nice man who wants to be with her. Like, I was like, I have to root for that. And I was like, Missy, just like, I don't know. Cash is trouble at the moment. Um, but then like I don't know, they did a really good job, I think, writing Cash and Missy's connection, and the actors
Mhm.
have really great chemistry. So by the time like they were like pushing them together, I was kind of like into it, but in a way that I don't know, it just felt right. Like the way that they were writing it, it felt really natural and organic. What didn't feel natural and organic when Valeria was part of the go get her
Yeah.
squad. I was like, weird choice, but nonetheless. But when they kissed, I just couldn't stop thinking about that's her brother-in-law. Like, if it was without that, I think I would be like completely on board. But there's still that hang up in the back of my mind that like, and I know it's a soap, but it doesn't operate fully like a soap. That's another thing. There's some shows that like I want to look in their face and say, "You are a soap.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Be the soap that you can be." Looking at Virgin River, be a soap opera. Um, but yeah, it's just the hang up in the back of my mind. Like I can't stop like thinking about the reality of that, of like what the family would think.
Mm.
They all
Hmm.
see, I don't know, they have to be seeing it, but how weird that would be to sit Isabel down and be like, I'm gonna marry another one of your sons. It's just odd, only in soaps, only on TV. Well, maybe not only in soaps, but like, but yeah, that's where I was at with them.
Hmm.
Complicated, to sum it up.
I feel like the scene between them when they finally kissed, after it was over, there was this like awkward like tension between them, and it reminded me of when Valeria and Cash kissed, and it was like Sabrina said, but it was almost like a this was a mistake kind of thing, or there's no chemistry there. It felt like the spark kind of fizzled for a moment, and then he walked away. And then they try to bring it back, and they're like, "Oh, she's gonna have to choose between one of these two men." I thought the scene with him and Gus at the front door was very funny, and like, "Where do you know where she is?" I was just about to ask you. Meanwhile, she's off in Albuquerque. It's like,
It was giving Sweet Home Alabama when
mhm.
Patrick Dempsey and Josh Lucas both show up looking for Reese Witherspoon. It's like the same dynamics.
Yeah, and there's no longer animosity between them because they've just accepted that she's going to make the choice. I did question the timeline because I'm like, she only found out about this. She gave Gus 24 hours. She had kissed Cash, and she also had that horse ride with Isabel, and suddenly she's gone, and she never told them. I'm like, she's just up and packed away her life. I did question the timeline. As in, like, when did this decision get made?
Yeah,
Did she
last
just
time we
like
see her,
leave
she's
overnight?
standing on a bull. What was she doing?
Yeah, yep. She's
She's on a
trick riding
horse,
back.
trick
Trick
riding.
riding's back. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy she chose herself, but again, I felt like these two episodes kind of undid a lot of what we did, and it was time for her to choose herself, absolutely. But of course, she could only choose herself after handing her everything else she's wanted, so she's going to have to choose against that. Meanwhile, the stadium conversations were dropped. We've just dropped that storyline altogether because we had Daniel Booker go back on himself and decide he wanted to name the stadium after himself. That didn't even become a thing in the finale. I feel like the last two episodes kind of retreaded a lot of territory that it already had treaded.
Mhm.
Um,
But if you watch like the first three episodes and then the last two episodes, I feel like it's a decent story arc.
yeah, you do get
Half the
there in
season.
you do get there in the end, but like
There's a lot of payoff for like what happened in the beginning at the end, like in the middle. Like if I lift out the Cash and Valeria stuff, then that scene with all of them being like, "You like her, go get her," makes more sense if I forget the fact that like two episodes ago Valeria was crying over him. It's just
Mhm.
if I lift that out, I think the yeah, I'll stop talking. I hate sounding like a hater of the show.
You don't sound like that. You sound like someone who is critical of some of the choices they made. For instance, you mentioned the clapping of to go get Missy. There's also the moment where Tuff says you're always going to be a McMurray, and it's like she is. But if that's the case, wouldn't y'all have seen her more of like a sister? So what was going on with her and Cash? Because we
Mhm.
did the Cash Valeria thing. So being like, you're always going to be McMurray. It's like, true, but this is not a soap opera. You make soap opera choices sometimes, but it's not a soap opera. So you can't be like you're always going to be McMurray, but also she can have a relationship with your brother on the side. That's just not how
Mhm.
that
See, that's what I'm
works.
saying. I'm like, pick a tone, be the soap that like you brought in a mystery son at the last second cliffhanger. Like this is a soap opera.
Right? But I think also, I think I got a little, I've always felt that not tough, Cash and Missy's kiss. There's actually a tension right before he goes, actually before he rides the bull and then after he rides the bull, that felt very like this would be the moment where she kisses him in front of the entire stadium.
I did wonder
But
that too.
I was also like, I was like, oh, but she wouldn't be able to because she's already been married to his brother and it's his brother's widow. So how would the rest of the town, well, even in Colorado, where everyone knows, not Colorado, Boulder, where are they? Cheyenne? Is that in
They went to
Colorado?
Cheyenne. I thought they were in
Hmm.
Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Oh, okay, thank you. So like
Yeah.
even the people there who are used to seeing
It
Austin
would be
and
a
know who she
scandal if the
is.
McMurray name is as
Yeah.
big as they've been claiming it is. Like it would be a low grade scandal for this small town.
It would be. So I was just like, oh, I wanted her to kiss him there, but I was like, wait, brother-in-law, kind of. I mean, yes, forever, but like, it is what it is. I don't know. It is throwing me because it's not a soap opera. And soap operas, you go, it's what they do, and you keep it pushing. But with this,
Mhm.
it's got a more straightforward tone, or at least it's supposed to be. So when they make soapy choices, it's like, you made that choice. Now you have to live with it. You realize that, right?
Yep.
Mhm. Yeah, it is funny when you say it like that because the show does kind of present itself in more of like a serious tone, and like you said, it's kind of slice of life. Not an awful lot happens from time to time, but
Like Sabrina said, meandering. Soaps don't really
yeah,
meander as much as
Mm,
like the narrative doesn't meander.
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So many bonker stuff happens in soap sometimes that you just get used to it and just go with it. Whereas in this, the unusual stuff kind of came out of the blue, and you're like, why are we doing this? Because you're absolutely right. Cash and Valeria didn't serve the plot. Tough and Julian, why did we break up in the end when it only finally started serving the plot? And the Booker Stadium, we brought that in midway through the season. All of our focus on it. There was literally a whole episode dedicated to doing a whole ride show so that Mr. Booker could like it, like what he sees, and then he didn't like what he sees. But now we've gone backwards on it, so it's no longer a thing. And now the whole we wrote Gus off only to bring him back in the final episode. I know we do that sometimes in season finales, but that was just the latest in a long line of. But actually, let's go this way kind of decisions they've made. Um, so I agree. It's funny if you cut out the middle stretch, you have a pretty solid show in there. So should the season have been 5 episodes?
Probably. Okay, here's the thing though. If I don't think the CW is going to pick it up for season two,
Mm-mm.
but if it were to do that, if we were living in a universe where that was possible, it would become a soap. It would need to because of
See,
where
I
it
don't remember
is.
what episode it was where I was saying like if the CW picked it up, I would want it to be sexier. I think that was like
Mm-mm.
episode 2 when I said that.
Mhm.
Still true.
Yep, you're
Mhm.
not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be it would pump up the volume. It would have to because the things you can do on Hallmark Channel, you just cannot do on the CW. As far as like tone and expectations and what people want. And this show would serve well with that with some of the choices they've made, especially because whoever Mr. Chavez has sent for his daughter. And she just
Mhm.
got into the car. Missy doesn't know that her husband has a whole entire child that he never told her about. Cash is
Isn't
now,
Cash now in like in debt to this
yes,
crime?
to
See, I can't stand, stand storylines like that. Like this is an Ozark. Come on.
and then
Diversion River did that too, and I'm like, this is supposed to be like this idyllic little northern town with a comfort watch, and we've got like a crime family across the river. Be real for me, please.
But no, I mean, so all of that stuff that you'd be able to lean farther into. I will say I did laugh twice about like the way they use scenery for this episode, which is like I'm being like them hard pivot to this thing I want to talk about. But the Cash has a line where he says, I have 600 calves to feed, as he's telling Janine why he can't just pick up and leave and go do the Battle of the Bands, which I was like, 600 calves. Okay. When Valeria gets in the car, they to go meet the what's I guess her butler. When she meets her butler, the man who's in charge of the household, they push into a set of cows that are over in the snow, which just had me laughing. And then in this episode, or I said episode 9, I can't remember, Missy pawns off her engagement ring for $3,000 because she's helping the ranch. What is $3,000 going to do on that ranch? And they never
Hmm.
told us how much the venue cost for the ranch, but I think it was more than $3,000. And the bookers, who are incredibly rich, refused to pay, just like rich people who were like, no, not worth my time. I'll just skip it because the clause in the contract says that I don't have to pay if the venue's
Mhm.
the reason. I was like, she's not the venue, she's a person,
Right.
but they can't afford a lawyer. I'm like, the choices we make are kind of funny. Anytime
Very
the
much
animals are
so.
involved, I laugh.
The snow was really pretty though.
It
Yes,
was
it was.
beautiful. I wanted those cows to see some shelter though, but it was
Kind
a
of,
funny shot.
it hadn't, there hadn't been snow on the ground previously, right?
I don't think so.
No, I think we just found out it's winter. That or, who knows? It's
Didn't they?
Colorado. Maybe weather is unpredictable.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not even going to begin to. I don't know what snow's like.
They had me for a moment. I will say that when the scene you mentioned, Sabrina Marie panned off and saw the cows after Valeria got in the car, it's like, this is not the end, is it? This is not the end, is it? I hope they wouldn't end on that. Thank goodness they didn't, but they had,
I thought it was the end after, was it Cash and Missy's kiss?
yeah,
I thought the
that's what I
episode
was
was
going to
over,
say.
and I was like, we
There,
got a whole act.
there were three or four false endings, weren't there? I mean, like that's
That would have
probably
been a
that's
great place to end, to be
yeah,
honest.
right.
Mhm.
But they really had me convinced then that the Valeria getting into the car was the end as well. And I was like, please don't tell me we're ending on this
That was
nonsense.
really
Not
ominous.
come on, not this again. Well, this secret's taken up enough of the season. Thankfully, it didn't. But yeah, there's some interesting setups for season two. It's just unfortunately, I'll probably never say it.
I know her dad would end up being like this terrible businessman who like
Hmm.
it would just get really soapy on CW.
Hiram Lodge Light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He, who like secretly like loves his daughter but doesn't know how to talk to her. I think that's what the
Yeah.
thing is gonna be. Yes, me. That would definitely be what happens. And the stepmom would meet a very interesting demise, most likely.
Hmm. That sounds like soap drama to me.
Right? But it's not to be. It's not, but thank you
Mhm.
guys for coming on this ride with
It was
me.
interesting. It was fun. Glad that it's, yeah.
You're done. It's good. It's you're glad that it's done. That's totally fine. It happens.
I do think I'll miss catching up with the characters. But I think I'll miss more of what Ride was in its first five episodes than what it became in its back
I'll
five.
miss Tough.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
that's a fair analogy.
Oh, Mo, since CW this aired on CW, hook Jake Foy up with a role in one of these CW shows that are coming.
Wild Card season 2.
Yeah.
Fun. Yes. That's a good segue into wild cards, which, we are often talking about landing the plane, docking the boat. They really, truly gave in this finale. It was really fun. It
10
wasn't
out
just
of
one of the,
10.
huh?
10 out of 10. 11 out of 10.
Yes.
12 out of
Yes.
10. I know I was
I
tepid last week, but this episode, I love a heist, a spy situation. It was giving Tom
mhm.
Swift too. I don't know.
It was.
It was all working. That's what I love of the show is that like each episode can be like its own flavor. Like last week we had Serena's the CBS uh crime drama of her
Yes.
dreams, and then this week we can have like the spy heist drama with always serving character development and actual juicy reveals that make sense.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and it was such a packed finale too. I mean, it was a relative. The case was not straightforward, but the plot of the episode was relatively straightforward. It was set up well. We knew Max reached out to the police to help her with it, with the heist that she was planning to lure her fake or her real husband, Olivier, what a name, into. Um, and they set it up really, really well. But at the same time, all of the elements that we mentioned last week also came into play. You had the USB drive looming over them. We had the big reveal with Alice's brother at the end of the episode. We had them reaching the end of their assignment together. We had the Can We Trust Max playing into it as well. I mean, like, for 40 minutes and a complex heist, they managed to make it come across as very straightforward and fit everything in and leave you satisfied. Like Reed said, 10 out of 10.
Yes. I love Olivier. I want him
He's
to get his own
fun.
show. He's very fun. Like I had tweeted this, but it's such a serve for him to be her estranged husband. I mean, of course, she got involved with an international thief by the name of Phantom, who has managed to elude Interpol and any other agency around the world. Like it's just, I'm like, yes, and he's suave. And
Hmm.
he knows what he's talking about. The actor had great presence to be coming into an episode of a season that's not only at the tail end of it, but also the season finale and be able to like stand toe to toe with everybody. That can be difficult. And he reminded me of the way I feel when Bridget Regan is ever in anything.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Like she's been there all along, yes.
Yeah, and you walk in
Yes.
like you own the place. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love how like mildly insecure and jealous he made Ellis feel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, Giacomo was acting as the male lead he is in this episode. The facial expressions, it was Chef's kiss. It was beautiful. I could list like four different facial expressions he made in regards to Max that just made the episode what it was for me. Like everything else aside, like those his reactions to Max were just brilliant. There was one scene where she like walked away and he looked at her longingly, and I was like, okay, wow. It was a lot for me.
Yes, the kitchen scenes particularly, especially because she downgraded them really fast in front of her husband. And I was like, oh, not after the moment you had outside. And now we work together, we're not partners. Like the way
Hmm.
that she kept distancing herself. And I was like, oh, not that. I feel hurt. This is a
Yeah.
very loyal man who has shared his heart with you. He felt like we were going somewhere in our friendship, and you do this to him. I mean, I understand it's Olivier. You don't want this man to know anything about Ellis, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah. The tension in the house in that first scene was like insane because you could see Alice getting frostier as well. But like you just mentioned it, Sabrina, the scene they had in the previous episode, the most chemistry between them we've ever seen, and they both felt that. Whereas meanwhile now Alice was like, I was just doing my job when she said you saved my life, and that was not what the story he was like saying to her beforehand. So you definitely sense the dynamic change, and there was definitely a whole we have to remember this is an unserious show, so in the midst of the height of all of this tension going on, there was a lot of like unseriousness like between him and Olivier. They were trying to be the alpha male, and they were being like trying to like it was smart and sarcastic comments the two of them were saying to each other, just trying to one up each other because it all had to do with Max getting in Max's affection and. It was so good. I would also want to say Alice played the like crooked security guard really, really well. Like the way he was like getting on with everyone there. Um, but the moment when he had to like do the like check on Max and the chemistry between them, and Olivia clocked that when he was scanning her. And my goodness, I loved it. They made time for everything between the two of them. They felt all of the emotions in this episode.
I with the scan, I was like, so everybody here can feel the tension.
Yeah.
We can also see it. This is not how these usually happen. No one is like the fact that they were able to do that though when he's got like the wand. I was like, it's unserious and yet sexy. Like they
Hmm.
know how to do that balance really well. And Olivia's like, I don't quite like it, but I can't really say anything about it. But I will later on during the heist. I appreciated though that even as there was a bit of combativeness between the two men, it wasn't exactly toxic. And even when
Yeah.
he's leaving, like even when they did that moment where he clearly wants Ellis to leave with him, he's like, "Do you need a lift?" And he's like, "No, I'm good." Olivia just does end up leaving. It's not one of those things where he's like, "Well, then I can wait too. I'm good as well."
Right. Yeah. That's what I meant when I said the unseriousness. There's a lot of after you. No, 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 no. After you. Because they were trying to like one up each other. But like, I did love how it brought us on such like a roller coaster because Olivia obviously was feeling a certain kind of way about the chemistry between Max and Alice. So then he actually did reveal that he did want Max in the end and that he wanted to make up for it all. But actually, no, in the end, he was just going to betray her and walk off with the egg. But Alice stopped that from happening. Like, they took us on a real roller coaster with the plot.
He did.
There was a lot happening, and
Hmm.
I accepted the fact that when they were explaining everything, I was like, well, you guys have fun. There's no way I'm gonna understand all of this. I'll catch up with you at the end. There was like a whole explanation scene. I was like loving it, not understanding it.
Yeah.
That's you guys know me in these explanation scenes, in these procedurals. I'm like, okay, I'll see if I get it at the end.
Hmm. It was a
No,
lot, wasn't it? I did
yeah.
admire that we did the
But it was
flash.
great.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I admire the fact that we flashed back between the two, or cut between the two. Max telling the same story to her two audiences, and they were slightly altered events. Vanessa sold the monologue great because it was very expositional, and yet it didn't really feel like it. Perhaps a little bit too long because it did felt like you were being overpowered by all the information. But you know what? They got there in the end. They had to tell us how the plan was supposed to go so that we could compare that to how the plan actually went. Very successful in doing so, but like another actor might not have nailed it as well as Vanessa did. She sold it hook, line, and sinker. And I mean, like, I think we all bought into it as much as like the police did and Olivia did. Great, great, great scene.
Well,
Mhm.
she was hilarious though because she said the only thing my dad did wrong was trust the wrong person. I was like, girl, he was still committing the crime. He just got left with the bag. Like the idea that like he shouldn't be in jail because he was lied to. And if he had not been lied to, he would have gotten away with it. Like, no, like, that's not
I'm
how
with
that
you when you're
works.
right, Max, but hmm.
You're right. But at least he did get his down to a year.
Yeah.
So good for
I mean, yeah,
George.
the commissioner didn't let her off completely. Like, he still has some time to serve. But I mean, that was a fair compromise. I love the fact that Max went over everyone's head with the commissioner and brought her in and told her this outlandish story. And we haven't seen the commissioner since like the first episode. And she was like, what am I signing myself up for? But I mean, like, that's what Max does. She sold the story well. And I like the fact that they were willing to take her chance on her. And I mean, to most of the audience, she didn't let them down because Alice hasn't come clean about what she did yet. But like, we got to the stage where, yes, I'm going to say it again, she's a bit of a wild card, but at the same time, she's earned enough of our trust to at least give her some time here to pitch her story. And I mean, like I keep saying it, she sold it really, really well, and it was a great setup for the episode. Of course, there was more than meets the eye in the end. We see when the caper went relatively smooth. Of course, the door situation, they needed Olivia needed the watch to get in through the door. They didn't account for that. So there was one little like snag along the way, but generally the mission went very, very smoothly. So I was like, okay, this went too easy. So I knew at the end there was going to be some twist and that Max was involved in it.
The whole
I
time.
I couldn't I it was just a lot. Like going through Ellis's hurt with him and being like,
Hmm.
no, we were so close. And now, like, when you lose somebody's trust, it's like so difficult. And as he was piecing it together, I want to kind of know like what he was planning to do if she had been at the house still. Like,
Mhm.
would he have arrested her? What would that was he going to like confront her and get her and maybe like help her or something? Because he's still down bad, regardless of I think
Hmm.
what she did wrong. I think he's still down bad, but he's right. He said he would arrest her, and I think that would definitely be on the table. But not finding her, then going back to the boat, I'm like, okay, the lighting is too good. She's coming. Like the lighting on Ellis as he was getting on the boat, I was like, okay, we're about to eat. Like something's happening. They're not wasting this lighting in the setup for just him and the cat. No offense to Mark. Um, and when she came up, I'm like, oh God, where is this going? Where is this going? And the way that the show is able to deliver on its promises. Like we had just brought this up, was it last week? Like what we still have on the table. We didn't get the mom, which is fine. But the brother thing came back. And I'm not even mad that we don't have answers, just that we know the potential answer is there. And I don't think that we actually are going to know who killed him. I don't think it's anybody we've met, to be honest
Hmm.
with you,
Mm-mm.
which is fine with me. I don't care. But what's more interesting to me in that scene is how Ellis is feeling about her betraying him, and then what he's feeling after she tells him, I know the answer of what you've been wanting to know for a long time. And I want to know like what he's thinking of with her, like her coming back and risking arrest to bring this information to him. How much does that outweigh his desire to do his job? Like it's such a great area to play in, regardless of who killed his brother, regardless of like what happens with the egg. And maybe Ricky's still doing something with it. Love Ricky again, by the way. Um, but yeah, I love that dynamic at the very end. To me, that's like a bigger cliffhanger than like what is on that USB drive. Is like
Mhm.
Hmm.
how does the dynamic shift? Where do they go in season two? Would Ellis be mad at her? Although this is kind of giving me there was a Superman and Lois episode. Do you guys remember? I think it was when Lana found out he was Superman. I was like, I'm gonna give her one episode to be hurt.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's not where I am with this. I'm like, I'm gonna give Ellis one episode to like lash out at her and like be mean and like be hurt, but I need him to like, pick it up and keep moving for the rest of season two. That can't be the arc of season two of them like trying to get back to where they were.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, they might do
but
that
yeah,
though. Only because so it's the abandonment issues for me. That's
true.
the crux of the issue for Ellis because with the trauma of losing his brother so like immediately, like because it was a murder, there's issues of people leaving. Rachel left. right? But at least he can get in contact with her. Max was leaving. Like he was happy and he wanted to call her, and then he couldn't reach her. And then it becomes, well, she's abandoning me too. I thought we were close. I thought we were partners. I thought it meant something to her, but obviously I don't. Which then Vicky will pop in season 2. Vicky will have to be like, sir, not only did she risk getting locked up for you to bring you this information, but even prior to that, she made sure that she was leaving. When she was leaving, that you still got everything you wanted. She set you up great. She didn't leave you like Olivier left her. So it's not the same thing, which I don't know if Ellis would particularly agree, but it would be like the road back to feeling better about Max. I do like though that she cares so much about him that she's going to give him this information. Like she cannot skip town knowing that she knows who killed his brother.
Yeah, would she still go? Would she be like, hey, dropping off USB, gotta go?
Yeah.
Yeah, the emotion in her eyes though, like Vanessa and Giacomo just hit that out of the park
So
because there's
locked
just so
in.
much sadness.
That's one of the facial expressions that he did that I was like, took my breath away.
Yeah. And it was so layered, that scene, because you're right. You said where did they go from here? What is their dynamic? The thing is, he broke the fake egg and he returned home to his boat, upset. I assume he did not start a manhunt for her. I assume he did not take that information to the authorities yet, which means he had, because of the way he obviously feels about her, he has questioned the way he does things. He's not as by the book. And I guess it's been a learning journey for him because Max has been trying to teach him not to be as by the book. And now he's been presented with the ultimate opportunity to showcase that, because he obviously did not go to his peers with this. So her reputation is still safe for now. Obviously, I assume someone's going to find the broken egg and think, why did Alice destroy evidence? But he's already conflicted over the way he feels about her. And now she's brought him this information. So I do hope that they meet in the middle earlier in the season and that it doesn't last the whole season, if you get what I mean.
I wonder though if because it seems like if he were to accept this information on the USB drive, it would go like he would have to, it would put him in a weird situation to tell his higher ups, like, oh, I got this information. Like, where'd you get it from? It's like, what if, like, it's so, would he just take the real egg? Like, would Max be like, hey, let's just put the egg back. Can she cancel whatever transaction she was doing? Like, I just want to know, like, what, because I think it would, in order to pursue this, I think Ellis would have to tell a few lies to his bosses too, right?
Potentially. Well, actually, this is why that this is a great cliffhanger because she just gave up her get out of jail free card for him
Yeah.
because she can't use that information now because she's choosing to give it to him.
Ellis, please consider that. She loves you. I know she was going to betray you, but she loves you.
She did the right
So
thing in the
good.
end.
She did. I mean, and it is because she loves him. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
could you imagine skipping town knowing who killed his brother and
No.
saying nothing because you're that selfish? That seems like a choice that Olivier would make.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And that's always, I think, what separated Max from the people who she hung around with, because from the beginning it's been like, well, no one will trust her because what she did for a living, so to speak. No one trusted her because of the fact that she was a con. But the fact is, Max very quickly proved that she is loyal to the people that she loves. And yes, she was ultimately going to serve herself by getting out of this country with money, by stealing. But she wasn't going to do that until she was sure that Alice got the job back that he wanted. So there was that element to it. But then she found something else that could be far more important to him. So she threw it all away for him. She literally did. Like rom-com 101, she threw it all away for the person that she loves. And she went back and presented that information to him. This is going to reset the status quo. I remember we said the arrangement they have is going to come to an end and something is going to happen, that it'll reset the status quo and that we'll have a different version of it. I assume this is what season 2 is going to look like, and that maybe she's no longer working for the police, but she's his off the books help, and then she'll help him get there. I don't know whether that means a season long arc, if we're going to go back to a season of filler of the week episodes. I don't know, but either way, they've arranged a new dynamic because she ultimately chose, she didn't choose herself. She chose to do something
But
for
I
him.
wonder if it could end up in like a white collar situation where like they arrest her, but she gives
Yeah.
back the egg, so that like decreases her sentence and she can still like be in the work release program somehow.
Hmm.
Possibly. I also think that she might have to live on the boat because that we found out in the season finale that the houses were Olivier's and she'd
Hmm.
been taking them to get his attention. And she doesn't, I'm assuming with him arrested, those are not, she can't have those houses because they were his. They're all gonna be not foreclosed. I don't remember what the word is that they use when that happens to someone who owns property. But she won't be able to stay there, which means she might have to stay on the boat. She might be released to Ellis for a work
Mm.
release program.
Would love it. She and Mark would team up against him.
Yes.
The funny thing too, you mentioned Rachel. She got all bent out of shape when he mentioned Rachel, and I was like, "Girl, you have no leg to stand on."
No,
Right.
not one.
You're bringing not even a knife to the gunfight. You're bringing like a cheese knife.
And it was very poetic because he went to his ex about her ex. I mean, like, and the two of them felt a certain kind of way about those being back in their lives. I mean, like, it served the plot beautifully. And like, this came right after the fact that Max was like, "Oh no, we worked together," and Alice was like, "I was just doing my job." But you can see they meant none of that because the minute Rachel was back in the fresh, she was like, "Excuse me, you did what?"
Like, girl, you
This is
can
so
be mad, but
good.
in this circumstance, you just can't.
And well, and the fact were they not arguing in the office kitchen of all
Yep.
places? There's no real walls there. Everybody in the station can kind of hear that y'all are arguing. The dream team is a mess right now. I think what makes the argument so great though is it does come from a place of defensiveness
Yeah.
and jealousy, and then hurt. Which a lot of that hurt was started by Max. And I get it. She's been working what 2 years on this plan. Like
Hmm.
it's a courtesy even to enfold Ellis into the plan in a way that gets him what he wants. Because she did not have to do that, but she chose to. Which makes her that ending scene of this season finale, season opener, even more delicious. When her father was asking her about it, is like she found a way not to hurt Ellis, at least with his career. Obviously, emotionally, his heart broke, but
Hmm. Yeah,
she
no,
got him what he wanted.
they did. They landed the plane really well because I remember when that came up, that scene. I was like, the dialogue here is obviously intentionally cliche. I wonder if they had the plan figured out at the point. Whether they did or not, they ultimately found a great plan, and I agree because it made we didn't know whether we could trust Max at that point. The show was very much setting it up as in like she could do anything at a moment's notice, and she needs to be watched at all times. But like she managed to have her cake and eat it. She got everything she wanted, but also ensured that Alice got everything he wanted. Of course, there were feelings developed along the way, and people were hurt in the long run. But like, I think all in all, they managed to do that a great way that didn't harm the characters. You would totally understand why this happened. It felt totally in line with who she was, but also who we knew her to be. We got to know that she had loyalty to him, and she got there in the end, and she did. It was that was a fulfilling payoff for me. She got to play outside the box, but at the same time, not so far so that it damaged her character. Of course, it's damaged relationships a little bit, but they'll be repaired. They have to be.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, guys. So 60 days is all it took for them to be this down bad. Give them a full year, and we're gonna be a mess.
Yeah.
And we love it.
Yes.
Just can't get over how good the show was. Like, I can't say enough how brilliant I believe the writing was
Mhm.
in the outline. Like, perfect pacing. This is how you do a 10 episode arc and make it feel
Hmm.
like it was actually 22 episodes and not in the way that is overstuffed or again, like I said, it's not lacking anything. I don't know. And we've seen this isn't revelatory television. We've seen this stuff before. Like the dynamics and like the setups. Like we're not reinventing the wheel. It's just it did it in its own way. Like I think each episode told a story that I hadn't really seen. And granted, I haven't seen a ton of procedurals, but it just felt fresh and new in its own thing. And if you're gonna do like a procedural, especially a 10 episode one in this day and age, like I don't know. If you're a student of television, watch the show to like like this is a really great example of a tight 10 episode television that delivers week after week on all fronts. Like, I can't get over it, how great this was. And I want more eyeballs on it because I want at minimum 5 seasons. At
Yes.
minimum.
Yeah.
Reopen the Netflix deal for
Yeah.
it. Like we've been
Seriously.
seeing some of them
Who do I have to
like sports
email?
programming.
I will help.
It does need to happen though, because it does seem like if it lands on streaming, particularly Netflix, it will find an even bigger audience. I mean, it has a fandom online.
Mhm.
Yes, granted, a lot of that actually, a lot of that heavy lifting has to do with the bankability of Vanessa Morgan. But the fact that they were
And
able
Jack
to
Mo.
retain it, and Jack Mo, the way they were able to retain it is that it's so good. Because
Mhm.
fans of an actor will tune in. It's only the super fans who will tune in for the entire season, even if they don't care for it. But like there are people, more and more people were watching the show as it was airing. But
Mhm.
it's getting a significant like fan base and following. I know TV Line had done an interview with Vanessa where she had said it's likely going to be renewed. I'd like to take the likely out of that sentence and just be renewed so
Mhm.
we can like be settled and comfy and know that it's coming. A season 2 is coming. I really want it to come in the fall. I want it
Oh
to be a part
yeah.
of the fall TV block.
Yeah, procedurals have such a cozy feel about them, in that you know the formula, you enjoy it or whatever. But more often than not, on bigger networks, procedurals are on all year round. This only had 10 episodes to make an impression, and it did it. I don't fancy waiting nearly a whole year for the next set of 10 episodes, because that's counterintuitive to the way of network TV works. I get it with streaming. Stranger Things is a mini movie. We can wait 2 years for the next one. Fine. But procedurals work on television. Don't want to have to wait that long for the next season. And we did mention the last time how cozy a fall season could feel. Give us more shots of downtown Vancouver,
Yeah.
coats, scarves, coffees, all of that.
Was I not
Please.
right? That coat she wore in the final scene,
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh man.
amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I
Amazing.
want. But
Love
yeah,
it.
get season 1 on Netflix by July and season 2 on the air by October.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Boom.
I think
Free
that should be
idea.
doable.
Lol. Look it up in the flagpole.
Honestly, I think it's doable because of how far out from October we are, and how, I don't want, low budget is the wrong word, but how simple this show's production process is. It gets in and gets out very, very quickly, and there's only 10 episodes. I do think that should be doable. Um, we'll just have to wait and see if it actually happens. You're right. It feels like it's a foregone conclusion right now. We're just wasting time by not renewing it. Like, do it. Let's do it.
Please, fingers crossed. We should end there because the mole has to, be like, I gotta go, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
she has her marching orders. Like, girl, you haven't failed us yet.
No.
So, like, we believe in you, we trust you. Put it on the desk, make the calls, do whatever you need to do. Send the emails. Let us know if we need to send the emails.
Yeah,
We will do that.
I will.
But thank you guys for watching. Again, if you have not watched Wild Cards, but you enjoyed all of our reviews, if that's something that any of y'all have been doing, watch Wild Cards.
Do it. Yeah.
Yes, because it's delicious. Like it just really is a piece of television. We haven't seen anything like it on like the network in a while, and it deserves to continue going. So watch it every moment of your life. I don't know.
It
Underline,
deserves all
bold,
of it.
italicized.
Yeah.
Yes. But bye, you guys. We are the CW Spiral. I'm Sabrina.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Reed.
Bye.